Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life Burst Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, and today we're going to be talking about an interesting new deck from Prismatic Diva, since we're going over all of the centers that we can run. And this is Milulun. It's a Spell Slinger deck, which is interesting and new in Wixoss. You don't normally see this type of deck in Wixoss. At least this is my first seeing this kind of its deck in Wixoss in general. So I've been having a lot of fun playing it and just kind of testing it and making new versions of it and trying it out. Like I originally had more of a blue-black deck where it was just a double blue Elrig and a black Elrig. I've since wished I had a little bit more enter, so I've added green into it. I don't know if it works. I'm trying it out now. You guys can see this is actually my third build on it, 0, 1, and now it's 2. But yeah, let's talk about why this deck is so refreshing to play in Wixoss in general. So Milulun, let's talk about it. It's a level 3 blue center. That's got the following abilities. Its constant ability is your opponent's spells cost 1 more to use, right? So that has use cases. There's some more of the control decks run anywhere from 3 to 5 spells, so you can catch it sometimes on the opponent. But it's not going to matter all that much normally. Really, where its spell slinging action comes into is its once per turn action, its once per game action. Its once per turn action is that you can pay a blue, you can discard 1 Signy and 1 spell from your hand, and then you just vanish target Signy on your opponent's field. Doesn't matter about its level, doesn't matter about how much power it has, doesn't matter if it has a soul attached to it. None of that junk, it just goes away. Which is actually kind of refreshingly new in Wixoss. It doesn't really exist a ton. And also, spells sometimes are kind of useless in the long run in Wixoss. You'd rather have Signy in a lot of the cases. So being able to discard a spell is actually not that big of a deal. There's also so much card draw in this type of deck that you actually are constantly finding spells in Signy to discard. So it's very atomic in that approach, where it's gaining a bunch of hand size, losing a bunch of hand size. And then it's once per game action abilities. You just look at the top Titan cards of your deck. You reveal up to 2 spells with it, with a total cost of 4 or less, and then put them in your check zone. You basically get to cast those 2 spells for free in this deck. It's got to have a total cost of 4 or less. Which everything in this deck does, because the idea is the most expensive spell that you're possibly putting in your deck costs 2, so when you take two spells that cost 2, that's 4, you're good. And it actually, you can really snowball off of that. So let's talk about that one in particular, right? So what are you looking to cast off of it? Generally speaking, you're looking to cast Heterophany, which is got one of the most simple choices that you can do. It's just enter charge 3. And the other one that you're looking to cast is Trouble, which likewise has a very simple effect of draw 3 cards. So you're looking to basically use its once per game, which gets you 3 enter and 3 cards in your hand. Then you can do its once per action effect, once per turn action effect, which you're looking to, by the way, do every single turn in the game. It just needs a little bit of enter to work off of, so it kind of runs that kind of stuff, which is why I brought green into it. The Mel is the reason the green exists. Is aside from Mel just having probably one of the best, if not the best, assist Elrig in the game. Granted, it's also green, which makes it a little worse. It's just Madoka Clap, but it also then is able to just straight up block damage, Elrig damage included. Fantastic ability. Mel Invisible gets the A+ of being the best Elrig in the game, probably. Probably only seconded to the usefulness of Machina ability. Here, I actually didn't want to drift away. There's a world where instead of using Machina, I used Deus, and then I potentially didn't run green at all, and I decided not to, because in testing, Machina Wing Slash was really, really important. Being able to bring a card back to your hand is kind of important in this type of deck, just because it needs to discard its hand so much, and also because it runs such a high concentration of spells. You often don't have the correct amount to field, so just a little bit of recursion here with Machina helps out quite a bit. Machina Smash, again, also helps out. This is one of the times where you're probably always using the Machina Smash ability. The interesting thing with the deck is also its 2 pieces that it's running. Death Diva Beam is perfectly fine to run. It's 2 enter to draw 3 cards and give something Lancer. I was looking for a little bit more damage output because the deck actually runs quite aggressive. This fits the bill for it, and drawing some extra cards is actually pretty good too for this deck. Again, like sometimes it struggles with fielding, so that's a good way to make sure that you can always field on the field. But it needed to have some little bit of damage push, and that's where the Lancer comes in. The really interesting thing here is actually the Innocent Battle. So it costs 1 enter. It draws you a card after you shuffle your deck, or you shuffle your trash into your deck, and then you get to draw an extra card. Again, the deck really does discard its hand quite a bit, so you do need these incidental ways to draw. But the interesting thing with this is the first time I've seen Innocent Battle being used correctly outside of the Nova deck that also top aided in the most recent GP. This deck burns through its deck as fuel, just burns through it. So you're milling yourself constantly. So in order to just even avoid a refresh, avoid an early game refresh on your own side of the field, because you are burning through your deck so quickly, you have control over when you're going to refresh. Instead, just Innocent Battle and get yourself a little bit more longevity, because against some of these decks, you're going to need just a little bit longer before they start milling you out. When we get to the main deck itself, this is just a sort of interesting setup. A lot of cards here. I think almost all of the cards here aren't cards you normally see playing, but some of them you do, right? It's got the Monoman, Bruno, Random Drain package. Between those 3 cards on their own, you're going to be stripping a lot of cards from your opponent's hands, which is going to help you out a lot by denying them some resources. But those are the main cards that you see quite often in Wixoss. It's got that core. It's lacking a little bit extra of that core, but that's just because it's so easy to get to Random Drain, and also because you're opening so many lanes. We're actually running more Brunos than you normally run in a deck. Bruno's weakness is it has to attack, but since you're opening lanes, you're attacking anyway, so you're pretty good on that front. The rest of it's filled with some more interesting cards. Let's talk about the spell package that you're running. It's going to be running 4 Random Drain, 4 Trouble, and 4 Heterophony. Like I said, Heterophony and Trouble are more likely going to be cast by you using your once per game. And then some of the times you're going to have Trouble and Heterophony stuck in your hand. You're not really going to want to play them. Although Heterophony is quote-unquote free, right? You spend 2 enter, you gain 3 enter, so it's really only enter charge 1. It's better when you get it for free. But it is one of those cards that you can just kind of play, just to get yourself an extra enter, which is pretty nice. There's just enough green in this deck to make that function. The upside is you're drawing so much of your deck, the little green that's in here actually goes quite a long way to making it happen. If you needed more green, you could take out the Ipitam and replace it more with Tasmanian. I kept the Tasmanian in here because these are very similar. It's just a 5,000 with a life burst to vanish something on your opponent's side. The deck ends up skewing pretty aggressively, so having more aggressive life bursts does help here. That's your spell package. Your random drains are going to be the ones that you're mostly casting. Occasionally you cast Trouble, occasionally you cast Heterophony, but you're not normally going to be casting those. In fact, the deck is so high on spells. You've also got, Blazing Monochrome here, right? So Blazing Monochrome has the ability to just 2 enter, draw 2 cards. And then if you have 1 or fewer Life Cloth in your deck, it turns into a level 3, which is worth mentioning. Let's see if I can get it to appear. Here we go. The level 3 basically allows you at the beginning of your attack phase, you can discard 3 cards, and you can put target Signy on the opponent's field into the owner's trash. It's just another good way to dump your hand into effect if you need it. But more importantly, it is a level 3 that you can play. So it does allow you to cheat a little bit. You need such a high spell content that it allows you to cheat, and basically this is a Signy in disguise. But when you're running so many spells here, you actually need ways to filter. And originally I was using Hakat to filter, and it didn't work as well as I wanted it to, because you just have these spells in hand and you have to wait an extra turn to filter. So what ended up being better was Sui. Sui allowed you to discard those spells and then draw another card for each card discarded this way. Generally speaking, you were looking for 1 more Signy to field or something. You had a bunch of spells in your hand. So you discard 2 spells, draw some extra ones here. Oh, here you go. You find 1 last Signy that you can play, and then you're able to play that. Again, we're looking just for tons of card draw, so Paraluke kicks in here with that ability. Paraluke has got the ability to open up a lane, which is good for an Enter, by the way. Again, like I said, this deck skews to opening 3 lanes per turn, but it lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You reveal a Signy among them, or reveal a spell among them added to your hand. It doesn't always hit. It's about 50-50 in this deck, which is saying something because this deck is pretty heavy spells, but it hits enough that you're pretty good with it. And when it doesn't hit, you don't really mind. But extra cards in hand means an extra discard outlet for being able to discard Milulun's ability to vanish things on the side of the field. The other Signy that you're going to be running is Modem. This actually does matter that it mills your opponent a little bit here, but more importantly, it's pretty much negative 6,000 every time you use this. You just never run out of spells here for your opponent to for you to exile and kill something out. Outside of that, the rest of the deck is pretty standard. You got your 4 servants. You've got some extra cards that are just sort of like splash cards to help make enter costs on certain enter restrictions. The only other one that's interesting to run is this Madoka. Generally speaking, this twice per turn effect that you have, you're always going to be enter charging with it. Sometimes you'll be running the ability to filter just so that way you can filter out a spell, draw a Signy. But generally speaking, you're going to need the enter in this deck because it is quite an enter hungry deck. But that's sort of what the Mel helps fix for you. And that's the Spellslinger deck, the Milulun Spellslinger deck. Like you can tell, this is a very strange deck. I actually like it quite a bit, even though it uses a lot of off-the-wall cards. So try it out. It's a really refreshing deck. It's really fun. Your opponents aren't going to be really prepared to fight against it for a little while. And then if you decide you want something a little bit more powerful later down the line, you can always go back to an old standby. But in the meantime, I'm just having a blast just messing around with this, and I'll probably be playing this online for quite a while.